Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our podcast, Bharat and Geopolitics, where we delve into the heart of global affairs. Today, we are turning our attention to 2024 Taiwan elections, a pivotal moment and with implications that stretch far beyond the island. I am your host here, Hari Prakash Sinha, and buckle up as we navigate through the intricacy and significance of this electoral outcome, especially with relation to China. Join me in extending a warm welcome to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Adityanjee. Dr. Adityanjee is the President of Council for Strategic Affairs. With a wealth of experience and knowledge, he promises to enlighten and inspire. So let's open our minds to new ideas and engage in a thoughtful discourse. Without further ado, let's dive in. Thank you for being here. So, welcome, Dr. Adityanji. Welcome to our platform once again.
Thank you very much indeed, Hari Prakash ji, for inviting me once again on your platform. I'm very pleased to be here, and I do hope that we'll have a wonderful discussion on the issues related to Taiwan and its new elections.
Yes, sir. So, this election was very interesting, and the world was watching on this outcome of this election. So, we have seen the outcome. DPP Lai Ching-te, he got more than 40% of popular vote. So, and he was elected president. So, what do you think is the impact on China's Taiwan plan? Because China has a very long plan and very aggressively, China has been following this plan. So, how do you think this is going to impact China?
So I think we have to look at the background first. China claims that Taiwan is a province of China. Actually, if you look at the history since 1895, mainland China has had any governing influence in the island of Taiwan only for a period of 4 years.
Oh,
Otherwise, Taiwan has been either under Japanese influence or Allied influence or independent. Only 4 years since 1895. Gradually, over a period of time, since 1949, when communists took over the mainland China and Chiang Kai shek of the Kuomintang fled to Taiwan Island, Taiwan is gradually building its own Taiwanese identity. It is true that along with Chiang Kai shek, a lot of mainland Chinese fled to the island of Taiwan. So the aboriginal Taiwanese are now in minority, of course. Uh, so it's a very peculiar situation. Uh, Chiang Kai-shek and Kuomintang from 1949 onwards still declared that it was Republic of China, established by Dr. Sun Yat-sen in 1911 after the fall of the emperor, I think Qing dynasty. And Kuomintang was an authoritarian rule to begin with. Only in 1996, Kuomintang, under then President Lee Teng-hui, allowed direct elections by people's participation in the island of Taiwan. Prior to that, the election of president was indirect by the members of the National Legislative Assembly. So that we have to understand. Now, in 1996, although Lee Teng-hui declared the direct elections and he got elected in 1996, but in year 2000, DPP, Democratic Progressive Party candidate Chen Shui-bin Chen Shui-bian, he became the president, but the road was not so smooth. What happened that although Shui-bian became the president, the Legislative Assembly was fully under control of Kuomintang. They had the majority. Taiwanese president's term is, 4 years, and you are allowed only 2 terms. So there's a term limit. So after 8 years, Chen Shui-bian could not, contest the elections. And in the next election, KMT, Kuomintang candidate Ma Ying-jeou won the elections. And he got his 2 successive terms. And then in 2016, Kuomintang lost the presidential elections, and the current president, Tsai Ing-wen, she won the elections. She got more than 50% of the votes. That is very important to realize. Also, the National Legislative Assembly, both in 2016 and 2020, PP got majority. Now, at this point in time, although Lai Ching-te, or William Lai as people in the West call him, won the elections, his margin of victory is much less than the margin of victory of the current president Tsai in 2020. And reason for that is that there was a third party candidate also. So there were three major conglomerations: DPP, Kuomintang, and TPP, Taiwan People's Party. The Kuomintang candidate was Hao Yu-yi, and the National Taiwan People's Party candidate was Ko Wen-je. So if you look at the vote percentages, yes, William Lai or Lai Ching-te got almost 40% of the votes. 33.49, almost 33.5% of the votes were obtained by Hu Yu-yi, who is a KMT candidate. And then if you look at the vote share of TPP candidate, Ko Wen-je, it was almost 26.5%. Now, before the elections, there were serious talks between KMT and TPP to have a combined ticket in which presidential candidate would be from one party and vice presidential candidate would be from the other party. And
I
they just
see.
could not agree which party will head the ticket. So which party will have. So ultimately, the talks of alliance ruptured and TPP independently contested. Uh, it is important if you see 33.5 plus 26.5, that is more than 50%. So, yes,
Yeah.
William Lai or Lai Ching-te won the presidential election by 40%, by obtaining 40% of the votes, but the majority of Taiwanese people have voted for opposition parties because they did not have a tight alliance as they were hoping for. The other thing is that if you look at the National Legislative Assembly, or what they call National Yuan, the DPP, they got only 51 seats out of 113. Okay. In 2020 elections, they had 61 seats, so they had absolute majority. This time, KMT got 52 seats. They increased their tally from 38 seats to 52 seats, so net increase of 14 seats. And then TPP, the third party, Taiwan People's Party, got 8 seats, whereas in 2020 elections, they had only 5 seats. So they are increasing their seat tally by 3. And there are some miscellaneous parties that got 2 seats. So you have a situation in Taiwan that the president elect is from Democratic Progressive Party, but neither he has the majority of the Taiwanese vote, nor does he have majority in the National Assembly, which means it is a fractured verdict, and he will have to, for governance, rely on opposition parties, and he will have to appoint cabinet ministers from opposition party also. But the situation in Taiwan is not so acrimonious. The KMT candidate, even while the vote counting was going on and 87% of the votes had been counted, realized that he could not bridge the gap, which was almost 7% between him and DPP candidate William Lai. He conceded. He conceded the defeat. He did not, he made very conciliatory statement. Actually, Hu Yu is currently the mayor of Taipei City. So he'll go back to his job as mayor of Taipei City. He acknowledges that he, did not do well, so he apologized to his supporters and his party. And of course, his presidential ambitions are cut short now because there'll be some other candidate who will be given, benefit at the time of next elections. So,
Right.
looking at this result and how it will impact China, one has to realize that Kuomintang party has always been supportive of mainland China, and they are the ones who have tried to impose something called the 1992 consensus, for which there is no documentation. And there are different interpretations of this 1992 consensus. DPP strongly contests this so-called 1992 consensus. Mainland China or communist China continues to harp on this so-called 1992 consensus, and there are multiple interpretations. Basically, what mainland says is that there was a meeting between KMT officials who went to Beijing or whatever and met with the Communist Party leaders at that point in time, and the gist is that there's only one China. Now, whether you consider Republic of China as the official China with headquarters in Taipei, Taiwan, and mainland being part of it, or People's Republic of China as the representative of Chinese government and Taiwan being part of it. So, in other words, what KMT says is that Republic of China, Taiwan based in China is the real China, and possibly mainland is like a western wing of Republic of China. So it's a very funny, ridiculous situation, but there's no written document that says that there was any 1992 consensus. Communist Party uses that expression, and it was not even there from 1992 to year 2000. This term was coined only after year 2000 elections in Taiwan, when DPP candidate, Chen Shui-bian became the president. Then they tried to impose that, yes, there's a consensus because DPP did not agree with that. Right now, the situation is that DPP considers that Taiwan is an independent sovereign state. They don't want to declare de jure independence for fear of avoiding war, okay, for fear of war with China. But they are saying that we will continue to consolidate our Taiwanese identity and our Taiwanese sovereignty. So that they will continue to do. Now, in a year before this election, the former president Ma Ying-jeou, who was president of Taiwan from 2008 to 2016, in March of 2023, he went for a 12-day visit to mainland China. And he made very, from Taiwan's perspective, obnoxious statements, and basically harping again on there being only one China, and both the nations on either side of the Taiwan Strait being Chinese and descendants of the Yellow Emperor and the Han race. So, trying to obliterate the Taiwanese identity. The younger generation in Taiwan is more focused on Taiwanese identity, and China has said that the red line is that if Taiwan declares independence, then they will definitely invade. In San Francisco meeting between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the APEC meeting in November of 2023, Xi Jinping apparently told Joe Biden that reunification of Taiwan with mainland China is historically inevitable. Xi Jinping has also talked about China Dream, and China Dream envisages a strong superpower China, possibly above and beyond United States, but with all its claimed territories under its wings, which also includes, if we may say, Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh and whatever outlandish claims communist China has. That also includes Taiwan. And prior to Russian invasion in Ukraine or this war, the anticipation was that Xi Jinping will move very fast. Having said that, geopolitical situation has changed. China is weakening rather than rising, although they may be modernizing their armed forces, but Chinese economy is weakening. And I think they are learning from the mistakes Mr. Putin committed in Ukraine. Uh,
Yeah.
Mr. Putin was very overambitious. Historically, communist China has learned from the mistakes of the Soviet Union. Soviet
Mm.
Union dissolved.
Mm.
Communist China did not dissolve because it's basically an empire of occupied states. So
Yeah.
they were smart enough to learn that when Gorbachev declared perestroika and glasnost, perestroika being economic restructuring and glasnost being openness, Chinese Communist Party learned from this mistake and abandoned the concept of openness or democracy. They tore down the democracy wall, especially after the 1979 Tiananmen Square rebellion by the students. So they have been learning from the mistakes of erstwhile Soviet Union and current Russian Federation under Mr. Putin. So my guess is that an invasion is not imminent and the red line will be adhered to. Uh, Chinese economy is weakening down, and this may not be the best possible time. There is some speculation that around 2027, when United States would be in election mode and there would be more consolidation of Chinese nation, they may try to acquire Taiwan. Now, there's always a constituency in Taiwan that wants, you know, reunification that is led by the KMT. And even prior to this election, the former President Ma Ying-jeou made some statements. And he said that China is too large, Taiwan can never win a war against mainland China. So reunification is the only option. But Taiwanese people, when they look at the example of Hong Kong, what was done by the communist China in Hong Kong, they are not very convinced.
Yeah.
Joe himself says that Taiwanese people should trust the word of Xi Jinping. I mean,
Mm.
it is like trying to convince that hens should have trust in the fox. So it's a ludicrous statement, but Joe has to do his own spiel. He is essentially acting as an agent of Chinese Communist Party and trying to prevent emergence of a new Taiwanese alone identity, which DPP, its current president and president-elect are committed to do. They have made a statement that they will maintain the status quo across the Taiwan Strait. What does that mean? That they will not declare official de jure independence. But they'll continue to do everything. They say that we are already functioning as a sovereign state. It does not matter if anyone recognizes us or not, but they are building a democratic, wealthy, educated, and middle class society. When what they are doing is that is being done by United States currently. Over the last 8 years since 2016, since President Tsai came to power, they have been trying to de-risk and de-link Taiwanese economy from the Chinese economy. Initially, Taiwan was more prosperous, Taiwan had more money, communist China was poor despite liberalization. So a lot of Taiwanese businessmen and business conglomerates made direct investment in southern China, starting factories, establishing, their branches in the mainland China, deliberately as a way of, appeasing the mainland China and Communist Party. So their economies got very much intertwined. But now they are trying to increase their FDI, foreign direct investment, all over the world except mainland China. So the proportion of Taiwanese investment in mainland China is going down and is at a historic low of total investment of 28%, whereas a few years ago it was 34%. Their investment in United States is increasing. Their investment in Germany is increasing. And if I may add, their investment in India is also increasing. So if you see the bilateral trade between India and Taiwan in 2001, it was around $1 billion. In 2021, the bilateral trade, if you look at those figures, was $7.7 billion, so sevenfold increase. Uh, Taiwanese company Foxconn, they have invested money in a advanced microchip production factory, Foxconn factory in Bengaluru. There are around 250 Taiwanese companies that have presence in India. They are mainly investing in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, but expectation is that their investment in India will increase. Total Taiwanese investment FDI in India is at this point in time is around $5.5 billion. And some of the Taiwanese business tycoons have said that they would like it to be increased sevenfold. Now, you need to understand that the small nation of 23 million people, only 23 million people, and they are highly educated, they have a foreign exchange reserve as of January 5th of 2024 of $570 billion. So it's a cash rich, cash surplus economy. And if they start investing in India, that would be good for India and that would be good for bilateral relationship between Taiwan and India, but also will continue to trend hopefully for next 4 years, if not next 8 years. They continue their linking and de-risking from mainland Chinese economy. That would affect the nature of relationship cross straits, and it will also boost Taiwanese identity as separate from Chinese. So we are in for interesting times. I don't think there will be a war immediately because all said and done, William Lai or Lai Ching-te, he's a physician. He's Dr. Lai, not Mr. Lai. So he has been through rigorous education and training. He's a smart guy, although he's son of a coal miner. And if you look at his vice presidential teammate, her name is Xiao Kim. This is the first time very unusual thing has happened. Uh, Miss Xiao Kim is of mixed race. Her mother is an American. Her father was Taiwanese. She was born in Japan. She was educated in the West. Actually, she did her college studies from Oberlin College in Ohio, which is almost just 30 miles away from my home here in Cleveland, Ohio. And for a large period of time, she was
Hmm.
de facto unofficial ambassador of Taiwan to the United States by all acknowledged accounts because they don't have a formal diplomatic relationship, but they have a relationship. And there's a Taiwan Act in United States by which United States will intervene if there's a war kind of situation. So it is a strong team, but they have to use some political savvy because of the fractured mandate, not you know cross the lines of declaring de jure independence from mainland China, but continue to build Taiwanese societies, Taiwanese identity, unique identity, and continue to de-risk and de-link from the mainland economy. And I'm pretty sure they will continue to do that. So that brings opportunity for India-Taiwan economic relationship. So I
Yeah.
expect things will move uh, with much more momentum in that direction.
So and that's all about the impact on China actually.
Mhm.
But as you have said, this is a fractured outcome of the election actually. So when the ruling party will have some of the opposition parties with them, so how effectively do you think he will be able to rule the country?
Well, you know, both the parties, KMT and DPP, both are very sane, although their approaches are different. And the way graciously KMT candidate Hao Yi conceded the defeat, even when the counting was going on, he bowed to his own supporters, apologized for his shortcomings that he did not win the elections, and said that I will go back to my job as mayor of Taipei. And in all respects, uh, President Chen Shui-bian governed as president from year 2000 to 2008 when he did not have legislative majority in the national parliament for 8 years. And yet, despite a lot of bad mouthing from mainland China and KMT, he was able to govern. So that example is there for the president elect, uh, Lai Ching-te, you know. So there is an institutional memory of a fractured government, a bipartisan government, because he will have to, in order to, do the legislative process, he will need support from both KMT and TPP, Taiwan People's Party, and probably he'll have to take some cabinet positions to reflect the will of the people so that legislative agenda is smoothly maintained. Uh, Taiwanese people are very pragmatic. They know where their future lies. So they are not going to do anything to scuttle the governance by the president elect. By the way, he does not come to power immediately. He'll be sworn in on May 20th. So there is a time of 4 months in which he will have a lot of consultations within his own party, with the current president, with his vice president elect Xiao Bi Kim, and with the opposition to come to maybe a unified national cabinet and have a kind of national government. So those are the possibilities because he does not start governing till he is inaugurated on May 20th, 2024. But it is a lesson, a real lesson for the citizens of People's Republic of China that your quote unquote brothers across the Taiwan Strait can govern their country very openly by democratic means, not by killing, not by suppressing the rights of the people that communists are doing in Hong Kong or in their own territory of mainland China, where they are using, you know, the brute force to bring people under the communist control. There are no civil liberties, there's no open press. So both are poles apart, and Taiwanese elections serve as a beacon of hope to the ordinary citizens of China who are not affiliated with Communist Party. I may remind you and our viewers that there's a movement going on in mainland China where ordinary citizens are resigning from the membership of Communist Party.
I see.
Communists have brutally ruled since 1949. There's suppression of religious liberty, religious freedom. Persons following the Falun Gong sect are being persecuted. Numerous atrocities are committed on them. They are made to disappear. Their organs are being harvested in mainland China. So, Taiwanese elections give them hope that they can make change in their own home and possibly achieve democracy in a vibrant, educated, middle class, middle income country like Taiwan.
So there is a very interesting question that is coming on my mind actually.
Hmm.
So the longer this situation persists, I mean the independent Taiwan
Hmm.
and the brutality of CPP continues in China's mainland,
Hmm.
that still happens the way the political opponents are getting disappeared. So do you think this will severely impact the future of CPP in mainland China with the course of time?
Uh, yes, that is bound to happen. You know, Taiwan Strait is like just 90 miles across, and people from the country travel each other as tourists. Uh, you know, and now the Communist Party may not be able to suppress the information about what's happening in Taiwanese society. They may not be able to censor because you can censor the English medium press, but what about Chinese press? Yes, Taiwanese is a separate language, but it's a pictorial language, and most of the Taiwanese also know Mandarin. So, and there's a exchange of tourists in both countries. So, whatever happens in Taiwan is no longer can be suppressed. So, these are going on two separate trajectories, and hopefully, over next 8 years, DPP will be able to consolidate the Taiwanese identity in Taiwan as the younger educated people are replacing the older people, and older people who were the direct descendants of the Chinese migrants who came along with Chiang Kai shek, they are dying. The younger generation is more Taiwanese. Yes, they don't want to have a war with communist China, but they are developing their own trajectory. If I may use the analogy of partition of Bharat, start in 1947 with the same baseline,
Yeah.
and where Bharat went in a totally democratic path, and Pakistan went authoritarian military dictatorships, and now it is infested with, filled with terrorism, lack of economic opportunity, there is illiteracy. The contrast is so wide between Bharat and Pakistan. I think the same process is going to happen. Taiwan versus mainland China. Yes, mainland China has progressed with the liberalization, but with Xi Jinping coming, the liberalization has been stopped. Xi Jinping was described when he came in 2012 as redder than red. He thinks that he is the true inheritor of the mental of Mao, despite his father being prosecuted by the Communist Party. So you will see that ordinary Chinese citizens are moving away from Communist Party, and a time will come because of economic deterioration in China. China is facing economic headwinds, and they may not be able to sustain the, you know, unchallenged rule of Chinese Communist Party. So rather than external influences, the natural evolution of differences between these two societies will possibly lead to, at some point in time, overthrow of Communist Party in China by Chinese people themselves, because they are the worst victim. Chinese people are the worst victim of the excesses of the Chinese Communist Party. Remember the Cultural Revolution? Remember
Yeah.
the Great Leap Forward? Who died? Millions of Chinese people died, they famished, they were killed, and the same thing continues under Xi Jinping. When followers of Falun Gong or Falun Dafa, as they call now, are being persecuted. Who are they? They are not foreigners, they are Chinese citizens. Because the Communist Party feels threatened by Falun Dafa sect, they are killing the followers of Falun Dafa, arresting them illegally and harvesting their organs illegally. I mean, this is a human rights issue. And sooner or later, the mighty arm of the Communist Party will be broken. It's a matter of time.
Okay. So I am moving to my next question.
Hmm.
This is all about China.
Hmm.
How do you think this election outcome impact the China-US relation and security in the broader Indo-Pacific region?
So, China US relations are uh, not that great at this point in time. There's a Cold War 2.0 going on between China and US. That is the reality. And although Biden administration does not want to precipitate a hot war with China, Biden administration will try to, over the next year, and if they come back, try to contain China's authoritarian tendencies. They may not be willing to directly confront China. And from Chinese perspective, they had hoped that this bilateral meeting in November of 2023 between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden will get them some concessions, political concessions. In the long run, that is not likely to happen. And should another administration come in United States, depending upon who heads that administration, you know, there would be severe consequences for China, communist China, because all the Republican candidates who are vying for a spot, and if one of them wins against Joe Biden, and especially if it happens to be Nikki Haley or Namrata Randhawa Haley, if she becomes the president, China will not have an easy path. She is very hawkish on communist China. So the trade relationship, the economic relationship between China and US will continue to involve de-risking and eventually delinking. It will be, the trend would be much stronger. There will be more sanctions on China if a Republican administration comes compared to a Democratic administration. So we will see that there will be attempts to contain China economically while continuing to give support to Taiwan militarily. United States will continue to sell advanced arms to the nation of Taiwan to bolster its self-defenses. United States possibly will not precipitate a war and will restrain Taiwanese government from declaring de jure independence. But in all other respects, United States administration will continue to support and give guarantee for Taiwan's sovereignty. So communist China would not be unilaterally able to invade the island of Taiwan without any response from United States and the West. The honeymoon phase of US-China relationship is long over. United States improved its relationship with China to contain the Soviet Union after the historic visit of Richard Nixon, organized by Kissinger with the help of Pakistan to communist China. Now that phase, that bonhomie, that goody feeling, that is gone, long gone. Right now, the relationship is more economic and governed by the private sector because US private sector is heavily invested in mainland China. But they are also realizing, so US companies are relocating into Taiwan, into Malaysia, into Vietnam. They are also looking into India and Indonesia and other Southeast Asian countries and are bringing their manufacturing, concerns, manufacturing houses closer to home in Mexico. So we have seen very recently that Mexico has surpassed China as the largest trading partner of United States. It used to be China, now it is Mexico. So the strategy they are adopting, the US corporate sector, they call it actually friend shoring. They used to do what is called offshoring. They were previously, over last 40 years, they had relocated all their factories in cheaper labor countries like communist China, where labor was dirt poor, dirt cheap, and the Communist Party was authoritarian. They did not allow labor union. So US business houses gained. But now they are doing what is called friend shoring because they had bad experience when China started putting restrictions and all. So the guess is that China, communist China, US honeymoon is already over. Yes, China remains number two economy and remains in terms of comprehensive national power number two military state, but I think they are bound to continue to have this Cold War 2.0 because communist China wants to surpass United States as number one, numero uno in the international geopolitics. And yes, US will not want that. So there's a famous called Thucydides trap, a rising hegemon invariably gets into military fight with the reigning hegemon. Will that happen? Probably not. I think China's economic rise is going to be tempered with, as its economy is going down, its exports are going down, unemployment is rising, and Chinese youth are indulging in what is called flatlining. They don't want to have, stressful corporate careers where they are working 20 hours a day, you know, 80, 90 hours a week. Some of the college educated youth in China are preferring to go into rural areas and just adopt a life of voluntary simplicity. So, Chinese miracle is not going to be there in 10 years or 20 years' time because other economies are coming up, and United States, that was a main benefactor of China, is no longer going to be benefactor of China. We need to realize that what helped China was Bill Clinton's, you know, giving of a carte blanche to China by admitting them into WTO mechanism without any preconditions. And China indulged in predatory mercantilism, having got the opportunity in 2000 when they were admitted into WTO. They use it to dump their products, shoddy products, into other countries using the WTO rules. So situation has changed. So China-US relationship will remain very lukewarm. Uh, China will continue to protest all the US steps that US is taking to contain China without saying so. You are muted, sir. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. So I am coming up with one more interesting question. I had a discussion long back with another geopolitics specialist. So he pointed out जो Chinese American investment in China to build the manufacturing base and, uh, and the supply chain. So once it turned against American actually, and again they are making the same mistake with Mexico. So when China has gone against them, so again they are not trying to create a manufacturing base in their own country. I mean the Americans or developing the supply chain. They are again making the same mistakes and they are just going to develop Mexico. So in future the same thing will happen to them.
I think the analogy is totally wrong, and I'll tell you why. When they offshored into China, China was not a democracy. Mexico is a democracy. So that is number one. China was thousands of miles away. Mexico is next door. China was not an ally at any point in time. Mexico, although it is not a NATO ally, but that is part of the North American Free Trade Agreement, which has been renamed now. There's a lot of migration, economic migrants, illegal migrants, or what they call now undocumented migrants from Latin America that use the Mexico route to enter into United States. And United States actually needs Mexico's cooperation in stemming the tide of this illegal economic migration. Mexican economy and US economy are heavily intertwined. So if you see cars manufactured in United States, the parts are manufactured in Mexico. Uh, it's hardly any difference.
Absolutely.
Mexico is not governed by an authoritarian government. It is still a democracy. There is a wage differential, and by friendshoring their manufacturing concerns in Mexico, they may be able to tide the stem of economic migrants, illegal economic migrants, or undocumented migrants from Mexico to United States. Situation is very different. You can't use that analogy. The problem of you know insuring your factories is that the wages are very high in United States, and barring certain specialized products, they probably will be better off, friendshoring in either in Mexico or maybe some other Latin American countries, because if you have to pay, like, some of the states in United States have a minimum wage that is going to go up to $20 an hour, the businesses would not be successful. One of the reasons that the three automakers in United States are not so dominant anymore is the cost of labor, because with the labor comes the unions, and with the unions come benefits, lifelong medical benefits, lifelong pensions. Uh, in fact, somebody jocularly said that GM is a company that provides healthcare benefits to a large number of people, but incidentally makes cars. So that is the reality, and they cannot manufacture everything within their own shores. And Mexico example cannot be compared to what was done in China. I think they are totally different countries.
Okay. So moving further, I think some of the things you have covered earlier. This election was described crucial regarding the foreign policy of Taiwan. So, what do you think? As you have said, the president would be, as stated that he will maintain the status quo. So, do you think there will be any change in the foreign policy of Taiwan with this outcome?
Yes and no. No, because they will not upset the cart and declare independence de jure. Having said that, the new Taiwanese government under President Dr. Lai will follow the policies of President Tsai, who is also from the same party. And their attempts are to build up a Taiwanese identity internationally. They may not declare it openly, but they will continue to have relationships, bilateral and multilateral relationships wherever they can, despite China's influence to bully smaller countries that have initially recognized Taiwan and are now recognizing Communist China. So they will continue to work informally with other countries using economic diplomacy to have bilateral relationship, and that is what is likely to happen with India also, that officially Bharat does not recognize Taiwan as a separate country, but that does not prevent us from accepting Taiwanese FDI or having bilateral exchanges, whether they are people to people exchanges or business to business exchanges, cultural exchanges, or by fostering bilateral tourism. So, my guess is that Taiwan's new administration, when it takes over in May of 2024, will continue to follow the policies of President Tsai, which is asserting your unique identity without declaring independence. In other words, they will not rename Republic of China Taiwan as Republic of Taiwan, but they will continue to do everything in their power to build up bilateral and bilateral relationships with the Committee of Nations despite bullying behavior by China. They will continue to seek partnerships and memberships in international organizations. You know that Taiwan is not a member of WHO. China prevented Taiwan's membership of WHO. So we come to this ridiculous extent. Taiwan is not allowed to participate in Olympics under Taiwanese flag, Independence Taiwanese flag. They are called Chinese Taipei in Olympic movement. So you will see that successive Taiwanese administrations will chip away at communist China's bullying behavior internationally. And there's a lot of scope in the world for Taiwan to pursue its independent foreign policy, but that foreign policy will actually continue to foster relationship with United States, Western Europe, and countries in Asia, including Bharat. I would expect more investments to come from Taiwan to Bharat. I would expect more people to people and business to business exchanges. And I think if we are savvy, we will encourage more tourism from Taiwan to Bharat in the Buddhist circuit, as well as this newly, uh, Ayodhya temple and the religious tourism and all those things. We can capitalize on that and foster better relationship with people of Taiwan, irrespective of what China says or does. You are muted, sir.
Sorry. Yeah, so irrespective of what Americans say about China's invasion in Taiwan, actually, in the worst case scenario, suppose China dare to invade Taiwan, do you think US will be doing effectively something?
So there is a Taiwan's Relations Act between U.S. and that governs the relationship between U.S. and Taiwan, which does not allow for a diplomatic mission or embassy of Taiwan in United States, but there's a trade office and there's a trade representative from Taiwan that is resident usually in United States and is the de facto ambassador of Taiwan to United States. As I said, that it is likely that if Xi Jinping does something, it'll be around 2027 when United States would be in another election cycle. Uh, and Xi Jinping would think that by that time the problems in Ukraine have sorted out, you know. So, and China has consolidated its military arms, whether it is PLA Army or Plan Navy. They would have probably by that time four aircraft carriers, all that kind of thing. If you see what Xi Jinping is doing, he is trying to weed corruption out of China's defense forces. The defense minister Li Fangshu was made to resign or disappear or whatever, went away from public view. A number of China PLA's rocket force commanders were dismissed on corruption charges. So he's trying to actually clean his own stable because corruption is rampant in China. In fact, I saw reports in which the missiles were filled with water and missile fuel was used by the armed forces people. That was one of the reasons that Li Fangshu was dismissed. So, what Xi Jinping is doing is to make PLA more muscular, Chinese military industrial complex much more muscular. But if he has learned from Putin's mistake, he probably would not. They may continue to do, exhibition of belligerence across Taiwanese Strait, as they do routinely whenever something happens in Taiwan, an election results that they don't like. They'll continue to that kind of rhetoric without actually invading Taiwan. There was a recent study which calculated in today's terms the dollar cost to world economy if China were to invade Taiwan, and that cost was $10 trillion. Okay, so yes, if China, communist China, was to invade Taiwan, there will be a lot of casualties. Taiwan is being modernized. The armed forces are being modernized. They are purchasing advanced arms from United States. So it will not be that easy for mainland China. But in that process, China will, if I may use the phrase, cut its nose to spite its face, because most of the economic damage will happen to Chinese economy if it gets involved in a protracted war, because under Taiwan's Relations Act, the United States is duty bound to protect Taiwan. Whether the administration at that point in time will act or not, if it is an administration run by Trump, probably there will not be anything. You know, if there's a government that believes in Fortress America, they will not have any major reaction because there's no appetite for sending boots on the ground in United States. But if communist China invades Taiwan, situation will be totally unpredictable.
I see. So with this, I am moving to my last questions. You have discussed a little in this discussion already. A survey shows that the Taiwanese identity has been on rise and Chinese identity has fallen. So what does it show in terms of China's plans of invasion?
Well, again, as I've said that, China is concerned about it. China badmouthed, the current president, President Tsai, despite her offers to have talks. China has called the president-elect Dr. Lai Ching-te as a disruptor and successionist or splittist or dangerous person. So they'll continue to do their name calling. Uh, they will continue to prepare for an eventual invasion. But if you look at Chinese tendency, they use propaganda warfare, they use information warfare, they use lawfare, and they still believe in Sun Tzu's philosophy of winning the battle without fighting a war. So they'll try to bully Taiwan in all possible ways and achieve what they call peaceful reunification by bullying the Taiwanese officials. Unfortunately for them, DPP is here to stay. And if you see the KMT faction, that is becoming less and less important in Taiwan. The supporters of KMT are usually old. They are people who actually fled from China, and as these people die and are being replaced by younger Taiwanese born Taiwanese people, I think the momentum for creating a unique and forging a unique Taiwanese identity will continue to gather more and more strength. And a time will come, looking at the costs involved of an invasion, Chinese people may not support an invasion. I think China is going through a very difficult internal turmoil. And yes, whenever there's an internal turmoil, the Dictators have tried to divert the attention by having a war, but this war would be suicidal for Chinese economy. There will be immediate sanctions from all over the world. The trade advantage they have with numerous nations, that will be gone. Just look at the sanctions West put on Russia.
Yeah.
The sanctions would be much more severe. The military response would be much more severe as compared to Russia and Ukraine. And American response would be much more severe. So I think Xi Jinping has to be really, really under influence of something to invade Taiwan under the current scenario, and possibly in 4 years' time either. They'll continue to build plans. Chinese are very shrewd people. By Chinese, I mean the Communist Party of China. They are very shrewd people. They have maintained their rule since 1949 by using any trick in the rule book. Uh, Not just authoritarian this thing, but having a compact with the Chinese people that you stop talking about democracy, we'll give you prosperity. So we are bringing prosperity, economic prosperity,
Yeah.
more nationalistic. But as the economy goes down, that you know uh, economic shock or a freebie, or a promise of better standard of living, better standard of life and amenities, as that goes down, they will not have hold on their own population.
Yes. So, with this, I am coming to the end of this session about the impact of Taiwan election outcome with respect to China. So, thank you so much, sir, for your time. It was really very enlightening, and we have learned a lot about this. So, soon we will be coming up with some new topic, and we'll be having a discussion on that.
Well, it was my pleasure to be on your platform, Hari Prakash ji. And as I said, my hope is that this electoral result, the victory of DPP candidate in Taiwanese elections, spurs an increase in FDI from Taiwan into Bharat and improves bilateral trade and bilateral relationship, whether that are at people to people level or business to business level, since we do not have diplomatic relationship between Bharat and Taiwan. But I think there are other ways we can boost the bilateral relationship and continue to encourage them to de-risk their economy and de-risk eventually the economy from China.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, viewers, for your time. So, we'll
Pleasure
be